Welcome to From the Left. My name is Stephen Leon, and I'm running for the House of Representatives in Maryland's 8th Congressional District. Thank you to the GCD Network for hosting this live stream among all the viewers watching. So tonight, I don't really have much planned. However, I do want to mention Jimmy Carter passing away, lived to be 100. So that's, I'm in the Democratic Party. So it's touching to know what he stood for, what he lived for, and all that stuff. And I'm sure you've heard this 100 different ways already. This happened just a couple hours ago. So there's a thing about anyone you want to think about. There's an old saying, I can't remember who quoted it, but there's a little bit of good in the worst of us and a little bit of bad in the best of us. So when looking at anyone, there's always that. No one's absolutely perfect. No one's absolutely bad. There's always something in there. So I actually saw this documentary from Jimmy Carter. It's called The Rock and Roll President. And I promoted that on my social media feeds. I saw it, I can't remember, maybe a couple of years ago. I watch a lot of documentaries. It's good to learn as much as you can from that, and then go and use media literacy and fact check and learn more things. We're not all historians and all that stuff. So it's really cool to hear about his story on how Jimmy Carter was a governor. He didn't have much money, and he knew someone who knew one of the Allman Brothers. And from that, he was able to tour with a lot of these bands, Bob Dylan. You go and look at the movie poster, the documentary poster, and you'll see all the different names. Now, Dolly Parton has always been impartial, but she has a scene in there where she's smiling. You know what I mean? I get where she has a fan base and all that stuff. I don't know if Lana Del Rey would be the equivalent for as far as rural. Clearly, Dolly Parton is rural, but there's a lot of people that vote Democrat in rural areas too. Or if Lana Del Rey would be more urban focused, and then even then, I think she lives in the country, so it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like who we're turning to with whoever's celebrity and all that stuff. But it's just really cool to see on how Jimmy Carter had that thing. Of course, he had solar panels on the White House and all this other stuff. So I highly recommend that documentary. It's called Rock and Roll President. Check it out and just, feel it. You know what I mean? It's important that, I don't know if it's something with Latino heritage or not. When people pass, it's not always a mourning. It can be a celebration. There is mourning in there. And just look at how people lived. Sometimes people don't always live how we would have liked them to, or whatever that is, if it's in our family or whatever. I've lost almost half of my family in the last few years from not from COVID, just from other things. And we just handle it how we've handled it, and we still have each other. And time for new generations. This is part of life. You know what I mean? Like I'm in my mid-40s, and this is the time where people start passing away. You take that stuff for granted when you're younger, but I get it. You know what I mean? So yeah. So to the Carter family and all that, I wish you guys well. And I'm sure you don't need me to say how he lived and what he stood for, and to devote your life to something like this. And so, like I said, I don't really have much else to talk about tonight. It's New Year's is coming up, but I'll tell you what, there's a new feature on my website, leonforcongress.us. There's a little message icon there for live chats. And I'm going to use this show tonight to go ahead and ask you to ask me any questions or grievance you have. I'm going to just sit here for 26 minutes and just wait. I have my Twak, that's a TWAK chat app. I've tested it throughout the week. It works. Your text, if you're in this live chat, I've tested it where it would have been neat. I thought at first that if you could search topics and things like that, but like whatever you put in there's knowledge bases that I can create and that everyone else could see it, but it's not. It's just like any other live chat. And if you were to go in there and put your question, no one else can see that from the website. If you go to the website and you ask a question, nobody's going to be able to see that but me and you. So, but again, knowledge bases, I'd have to, again, play with that a little more. So that's cool. I don't see any other candidates doing that, where that says a lot about what I'm trying to do. An open door, transparent kind of thing. Reminds me of the Digital Democracy Project that I have, where that creates a venue where you can also vote on any legislation. And I would be open, I would be conducive to that majority of whatever's in there. And hopefully we can get citizens in whatever district to use that. You know what I mean? And think about it. I mean, that's a lot of people just want to vote whoever they think is the right choice and then trust their judgment. And then when it doesn't, I mean, 94 million people in this country didn't vote this cycle. So, I mean, that's saying a lot too. Maybe some people just don't, or they take it for granted, or they don't care, or some people just generally don't know who to vote for. So when I see things on the right and you are saying that the people's voice is spoken, and well, again, you know, a lot of people that same thing happened to Hillary. The people, 3 or 4 million people that had voted for um, Obama didn't vote for Hillary, which is one of the reasons why Trump won. There's also that Cambridge Analytica thing where Facebook was essentially social engineering people taking, again, when I opened up this show, I mentioned there's a little bit of good in the worst of us and a little bit of bad in the best of us. So if you could put the 10 most prominent things that Clinton did and then only focus on those two bad ones, and you think it supersedes everything else, that's ridiculous. We don't operate that way with our families. We don't operate that way with our neighbors, our employers. And that's kind of where we're at in some regards, at least in that sliver of people that did not vote in the 2016 election. So, but I think there's another documentary out there. Which one is it? Is it Hacked? The Great Hack, I think. And Brittany Kaiser's in that. And they explain it. She used to work for Cambridge Analytica and she was one of the whistleblowers. Basically, that election came down to 77,000 persuadables and out of 3 states that swung that election, that just made those electoral college votes come out that way. So then, of course, you see subsequently Facebook tries to play Candyland and or what have you, and try and impose, try to make up for whatever they did with Cambridge Analytica. And then, you know, there's those Zuckerbucks kind of controversy. I've been seeing, haven't done too much research into it, but I've seen some, I looked into it. I was like, it looks questionable and I have to do some more digging. But um, so, and now you see, yeah, social media. And yeah, so here we are. Open up questions. 8:07. Show goes until 8:30. I'm told by the GCD Network there are thousands of viewers on the show. So this is the time to go to leonforcongress.us and just go ahead, ask me anything. If anything that's too personal, of course, I'm not going to answer that. Depends on what it is. Let me see something. I'm just going to sit here. I could turn my guitar on and fiddle with that. And then I could, I don't know. I mean, the week was pretty quiet for the most part. Sure, there's some things that you can sift through and make a topic out of. It's one of the things about this show where it's kind of gotten to the point where, yeah, I don't want to have to just reiterate whatever went on in the week and just have my opinion on it and extrapolate to whatever item that would correspond to my platform that would solve it or whatever. You know, I just don't see the value in that. I mean, I take my moments on social media and I find things that are relevant, and there's a bit of art and science to that. I get a little bit comical. That's another thing. I was just kind of going through this this weekend. I watched a couple documentaries, the Art of Film, The Power of Film, really cool, by a professor at UCLA, and really getting into, this guy has taught some of the best directors, or not best, but he's clearly taught a lot of directors and producers and writers in film at UCLA. So that's neat to see. I like a lot of the things, that the way that I'm doing it just naturally, right? The relationships that we have, uh, you know, we are we are a storytelling species, right? And how the most fundamental plots, the dynamics of the most memorable movies. And he goes back to the 20s all the way up. It's pretty modern to Logan, you know what I mean? And just what kind of trapping paradox do our characters go through? How do we relate to them? Uh, you know what I mean? Like the title of the film is named after the focal point. They think of Braveheart, The Godfather. It's named, so it's really cool to see all that. And I was kind of getting, inspired and moved. And, everything that I'm doing is not fictional. It's nonfiction. Everything I'm doing is, if you've seen that John Adams docu series on HBO, that's it's produced by Tom Hanks, and it's factually accurate. And that stuff actually happened. So it's really cool. I love the opening music. It's very fiddly. And of course, that's from the Northeast. The original Patriots would be Sam Adams and John Adams. So I think it's a little odd that, you got one group of people in the country that just been socially engineered and marketed to that you're a patriot for doing these things, when the founding principles of what a patriot is being distorted. And that we're talking about greed. We're talking about what's that famous quote that Sam Adams, I use it on Twitter all the time. It's X. If ye love wealth more than the animating cost of freedom, I'm messing that up entirely, but go home and forget you are a countryman, you know what I mean? Or anything from John Adams, who is Sam Adams' cousin. Those are the original Patriots. You know what I mean? Like those, if what happened in Boston, in the Boston Massacre, remember, Adams had defended the British soldiers. Everyone thought that the British soldiers had called fire into the crowd, which was more positions of tyranny of the crown. And though there was that was budding and that had been there, it was someone in the crowd that had called for fire, and the troops misheard that as they were being commanded that. And Adams was able to find that through due process, and even going impartial with his own cousin. His cousin, that was what Adams believed in. He believed in the rule of law, not men. That's one that has a lot to do with me having John Adams be my favorite president. Never really had one before. Like I always think about that. I wonder, Lincoln is the first president. Would Lincoln be the number one most beloved president if it wasn't for National Treasure with Nicolas Cage? Movies have a lot of influence on us, especially if you're a millennial. So I remember in that one scene, they're like, "What president was your favorite or whatever?" And when Nicolas Cage says Lincoln, he's like, "I like him too." Like the way that he said it, you're like, you know what? He's like, we're still a young country. How do you know who our favorite president? Now, Adams ranks somewhere like 15, something like that, and he wasn't really a good president. He was the second president, right? But what did he accomplish? There was definitely some treaties, some seditious treaties that he did. He suppressed free speech, definitely, and so did FDR. So it's just the but his positions in the revolution. If he would be he would be the legal prowess of the revolution. He was the most vocal. He was selling the independence. Of course, the Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson, but and a lot of that was borrowed from George Mason. So, and Jefferson himself was not known for his oratory. He's a good writer, but again, even then he borrowed some. So then, I mean, of course, there's the Louisiana Purchase under Jefferson. There wouldn't have been a westward movement if it wasn't for Jefferson. His ties with the French to get that through, and Adams wasn't an imperialist. He in those days, like if John Adams was my favorite president back then, if I was alive back then, and someone said, "Should we expand?" I would have been like, "No." But if then we don't want to be an empire. What's wrong with just the 13 states that we have here, right? But then if you look at it like military and if you GDP and like if you could sell me on it, sure. So still waiting on thousands of viewers, and that one person is going to step up to ask me a question or a comment. Not anything, climate change, gun rights, abortion rights, anything you probably already heard me say. Something new, something foreign, something, anything in 15 minutes here. let's see. Well, why don't we hit up some social media feeds while I'm waiting? Let's see. I always get a lot of people, if you want to call it backlash, whenever I post something, and Raskins posts always, people always, it's just different than buyers. It's just part of some of the fame that Raskin got from January 6th. Oh, I forgot to mention, yeah. So I'm after watching the Power Film documentary, and then I came across a comedy. I started thinking, why don't I do some comedy shows? And that's tricky. That's much different than sitting in front of a camera, live stream. It's different than sharing or speaking in a church meeting. It's different than the thing of, or music, performing music with an instrument, like singing. You know what I mean? That's a pretty vulnerable place to be. And that separation of what you sound like in yourself to how you sound out there. And with a guitar, you know, you have that buffer, but even then it's kind of performing is way different. And when it's comedy and blending, I'm going to call it, I'm considering this. I already got a little bit written up, even if it's just like local amateur stuff for 10 minutes. That would be, there's quite a few comedy clubs in DC, and just a couple I did after a quick search that I did in Maryland's 8th district, but that could be enough. And even if it's just, I support DC statehood, and it's all about balancing those ideologues. If we can get, if you look at GovTrack, if you look at those three lines, and then, well, I can't really say lines unless I have a screenshot, because if you look on a desktop, it's different. But the reason why we're not getting those votes is because look at that chart. There are more people on the right that are trying to get in the middle than the left. That's interesting to me. And then, of course, you have your troublemakers like Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert. And by that very same logic, if you want to say that the troublemakers would be something of an unconstitutional deregulatory attitude, then you would have to, what would that be like on the left? So if you would also mix in the plutocracy, if you want to use another colloquialism, banana Republican, which is oligarchs and things like that. And what about the Abercrombie Democrats on the left? Okay. Those that may have gone to college, or Don Byers, perfect example. He's like, I'm sure there are others, but definitely Abercrombie Democrat. All his legislation he introduced essentially is asking for more government funding that would eventually raise taxes and things like that. And rather than creating incentives and breaks for the private sector, use corporate welfare, whatever it is, to boost their positions. And that is something that, if ever since Trump came through and you're hearing and seeing all those voices on social media, then you know what I'm talking about. I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Thought I was. There we go. So I just went into Raskin's profile and mentioned the Rock and Roll President documentary. No one responded. Wonder what's going on Twitter. A lot of fun for me. I get very creative. So yeah, I'm gonna do a comedy show. I'm gonna try it. Why not? It's neat. Like, you hear comedians talk about politics all the time. Now the trick is using those two together without making it too political and not too comical. Like, I can't just say whatever I want. It's not very sexy either to talk about politics and specific details. But I've got a little strategy. I'm gonna play with it, see how it goes. I'm gonna create a demo, and I'll have that on social media, and then I can use that to promote. So I'll call a comedy club and be like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. This would be a good thing, ground game kind of thing. What do you think? You know what I mean? And And sometimes that's all it takes is to be able to, hey, look, how many comics talk about politics? You know what I'm going to name this thing? I'm a politician. I think it works good. I work in intellectual property and I focus enough. I'm a consumer. I see how we label things and I'm a bit of an art buff. You know what I mean? So and I think that's I don't think there's an have you ever heard a comic? This isn't going to be some HBO special, you know what I mean? I may or may not get belly laughs. I don't know. Every comic that has had to deal with that. And that there's that I can't remember which comedy documentary. It's somewhere in this mess of a feed where see that. So everyone loves My Cousin Vinny. You know what I mean? Where here's a guy, here's a character that we love who didn't pass the bar. It was at 6, 7 times, and he's not even barred in the case. He's trying, right? But he ends up winning it with the help of his. Oh, I hate when that happens. His fiance, soon to be wife. And it's just the way that it's done. It's brilliant, and just the attitude that everyone can relate to that kind of thing. So, to some of the Abercrombie Democrats, they very well may see me as a threat. They might. I don't know. Well, this New Year's coming up, and I'm gonna have myself out there, and we're gonna see what it's really like out there. If a lot of my just personality, and it shouldn't be about that kind of thing. Another thing that I'm dealing with, where you automatically, in the Democratic Party, you automatically think that it's just the same status quo. It is not. You have to look at my website. You'll see how much more different it is than everyone else on the left and right. You don't see my face up there with a big donate or join a summer camp like Raskin. So what was I talking about over here? Well, yeah, my personality is I'm a millennial. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a regular. I work at a white collar law firm. You know what I mean? They're not gonna. If you call them and all they're going to do is verify that I work there. They're not going to give you anything else. So like I don't know. Maybe this will be refreshing, but I have to go after Raskin. Look, you know what I mean? He dumped $1.5 million in stock during COVID. You can't be up there calling to eliminate the plutocracy from our government when you've done that. And that's nothing in compared to, it's definitely something. 1.5 million is significant. And how he even knew about that stock, his wife, particularly, doing it together the way that we want to ban congressional stock trading compared to Don Barr. Wow. And it's like, how can you even, every single time that buyer posts that we're the new administration that's coming in is making plutocracy worse, which is true, but you have no credibility, none. I've looked through Buyer's feed, and you type in corruption. Corruption is okay for his type of corruption, and he probably wouldn't even call it that. So those on the left that I remember, it's just there are people out there that just you're gonna just not even look at it for more than a second and defend something you're not even aware of. You know what I mean? Political science in this country is something very interesting like that. And I hope we can look at it something like a sport. You know what I mean? You get somebody at the free throw line, they miss or something. You don't just nix them. You know what I mean? And really take the time to see what I'm working with. But hopefully, this comedy show will be refreshing enough to the point to get your attention in a different way. You know what I mean? And if you think that I'm being too offensive or defensive, whatever, you know what I mean? This is politics. This is life. It's a competition. I'm gonna behave accordingly. Like if you're gonna uh decentralize, for the lack of a better term, Twitter here, then I'm gonna use it to my advantage. I'm going to use it. I'm going to throw jokes in it. You don't see the same content that I use in a lot of this. Think about how it relates to, well, now I'm talking about Sierra. I'm showing my appreciation for women and as best I can on a stupid Twitter thing. You know what I mean? Where this is from Barbie, right? Where if you saw the movie, spoiler alert, she meets the inventor. I'm an inventor, so that was nice to see. Just the bond that what girls have. My niece just Christmas just happened. She got two Barbies, and that was actually a brief topic about. It was cool to see uh, just how women the best I can. uh, I've definitely seen this movie with a woman, and I just had their reaction and society's reaction. And but for me, like my favorite part, I mean, Ken's got a silly role. Ken enough. I found a Ken T-shirt here, so that Metallica. Like if I were a Ken doll, I'd have a Metallica shirt with no sleeves on it, I guess. I don't know. Um, so anyways, and I'm not the only one. I didn't make that that picture. Um, so this I say, I was moved when she met her creator, not the tax evasion thing, but still, I didn't know that that Barbie was the inventor had named it after her daughter, Barbara. So yeah, and then but people get conscious and I higher powers of our own understanding, God and all these things and inventors in the clouds, whatever. Um, Thor, God of Thunder, friction, lightning. Feeling me on that? All right. Yeah, there's some sex in that. Yeah. Okay. So little silly things that I do. Wow. So not a single question, comment, or grievance. Nothing out of thousands of viewers of this show. Hmm. Not a single one. Too shy. Like it's anonymous. You know what I mean? Like your name's not going to be on there. Stupid joke. A cop, lawyer, and a representative walk into a donut shop. Cop asks the lawyer, "Where do you think those holes went?" Lawyer goes, "Ask Don Buyer." You get it? It's pretty obvious. It's about delivery with comedy. It's gonna be something I'm gonna have to practice. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I could bomb. I could do well somewhere in between. I have no idea. So, but I think it's worth a shot. You know what I mean? Like, I have to. When people are gonna, they're just gonna. Jamie Raskin's strategies have not worked. Not to mention his credibility, and just how far left he is. So, like people are just gonna with Trump moving in, they're gonna think now he's a top dog in the Judiciary Committee. You know what I mean? Professing the academic rule of law. It didn't work post J6. I'm sure that's why Raskin became a representative in 2016 anyway. And he only won, that was a 7-way primary. And he won by 33%. Everyone rushed to let's stop Trump, right? And then it didn't work. And if you want to stop Trump or anything, even ourselves, it's the ideas. Okay. And he's not an innovator. He's not. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong being something of a retired college professor, but it's just not working. So, um, I just know that that's the psychology of people. I know that was the experience that I had a little bit here with Bayer. Just people are going to, my situation is a little bit different, but just protect him and don't understand him, and you try to explain it, they'll be in denial. Exactly like if you try to say some sense to some on the right. It's not fair to generalize. The same thing. You have to be open to listen to these things. You have to know what the real problems are. You have to know that Dodge, I call it Dodge, is just a misdirection to mitigate the influence of K Street. And everyone that's currently there has no vested interest in solving that. And a lot of people that get into politics, that's what they want. You've seen The Distinguished Gentleman. Sure, again, that's a fictional movie. But again, these things are based off reality. So, well, it's 8:29, and I see myself in probably every Breakfast Club character, by the way. I'm closing this out, and I am also going to close the show here. I hope everyone has a good new year, and moving forward, we're going to find ways to be patient with ourselves and others, listen to new ideas. Then we can actually get the priority thing solved. With that, I will wish everyone a good night, and again, a happy new year, and take care.